Right, welcome everybody to another episode of The Scoop Rugby Pod. I'm not by myself. I am joined by Enda all the way from Ireland. I'm joined by Hugh all the way from England. He's a Welshman based in England. I'm joined by Vuyo. Vuyo is based in Russia. He's a former Blitzbokker. Jade is all the way in South Africa, Bloemfontein. And a special guest today. Our special guest is Catherine, also all the way from Ireland. Without wasting any time, I'm going to start off. All right, Hugh, I'm going to start off with you, mate. You're not very impressed. Obviously, Warren Gatland putting out his, can we call it a second string, third string, Welsh side? And
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is there to say? I mean, I could go on about how we had a changed side out. I could talk about how it's a World Cup warm-up game. It doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
I could talk about how, you know, of the 8 tries, 2 of them were intercepts. One was a dodgy penalty try and one was our outside centre, for some reason, deciding to give a try assist to the Springboks in his own dead ball area.
Yeah.
I could talk about all of those things, but really the game was more about selection. Now, it was a funny lineup, and I never knew what to make of it when I saw it announced last week.
Yeah.
It was a mix of guys who were getting their first opportunity of the summer. It was some guys who were probably getting their last opportunity, the likes of Dan Lydiard, who was probably in a last chance saloon in terms of selection for the World Cup.
Yeah.
And then there were some guys in there who were just, I think, played because they didn't want to risk injuries to the real first choice. It was a real mix and match team. And I think by the end of it, when we did empty the sub bench and had a couple of injuries and things, the team that we ended up having on the pitch was just a complete mess. It was a complete ragtag group of players who will probably never play together again. So what did Wales learn from that? Well, we learned that South Africa are good. We learned that probably our 2 starting props, Domachowski and Azarati, probably aren't international level.
Yeah.
We probably learned that Johnny Williams and Mason Grady is not a good centre partnership. Doesn't work. It was so bad that we ended up playing Johnny Williams and Max Llewellyn together, who were both 12s, and that didn't particularly work either. We learned that Kai Evans probably is good enough to play international level. I don't know whether he'll go to the World Cup, but he's one for the future. And that was kind of it, really. Gatland said after the game that his decisions in terms of selecting the squad is probably made a lot easier by that game. I think he probably would have had a good 25 of the squad nailed down in his head. I hope Costello isn't too badly injured from his concussion. Same with Rio Dyer. I hope that they're okay, because I think that they played well this summer and deserve to go. But yeah, I think it was probably it was a mismatch in the team.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Any news regarding Dan Bigger's hamstring, or was it a calf?
So it wasn't a hamstring; it was a back irritation, apparently. But Gatland said that if it had been a World Cup game, both him and Liam Williams would have played.
Okay.
It's just they decided not to risk it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't put it past Gatland to name a team and then deliberately kind of pull the wool, and Costello was always going to be in from the start. That's the kind of thing that he would do. So, yeah.
And the team announcement is coming out on Tuesday, if not tomorrow, right?
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember exactly which. That's right.
Okay, no, fair enough. Jade, I mean, you saw the Springboks yesterday. A lot of guys were given opportunities. RG Snyman getting a full 80 minutes. What were your thoughts regarding that particular game from yesterday from your side?
Afternoon, guys. Yeah, I don't know if you would actually agree with us, but I felt like a captain's hiccup yesterday. I really felt like a captain's run from the box. Went through the motions, tested himself at set piece, went through the motions, tried a few varieties at line out. A few times at the line outs in the World Red Zone where they didn't go to the mall, where they did a peel, tried a few moves. They looked very, very comfortable yesterday. arguably against a weakened Welsh team. I must say, when I saw Kai Evans yesterday, I thought it was his dad playing. I pinched myself and thought, hey, I'm back in 1997 now, or am I that old? But yeah, it looked yesterday, the box looked fluent. Caden Moody is going to be a baller. He's going to be a super rugby superstar in the future. Might not at this World Cup, at the next World Cup. Other than that, it was very, very well disciplined from the box. It was expected. They were powerful. And I'd just like to say this, that we can officially say, welcome back, Peter Steve du Toit. Welcome back to international rugby. He was absolutely immense yesterday, like the Peter Steve du Toit we know.
Yeah.
I think he had a massive game. Klein had a big game. Lebok, besides his goal kicking, was solid. Jaden had a good hit. And Sia had a good hit. He had a good hit for his first 40 minutes in a few months.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what happens on Friday. What Rassie does on Friday, will he mix and match? But he can be comfortable. It was a captain's run.
A captain's run, he calls it. Enda, your views on the Boks game against the Welsh?
Yeah, you just have to put it into perspective, don't you? Like, it wasn't Wales' first team, as Hugh mentioned.
Yeah.
And South Africa playing a lot of competitive rugby lately. So that's definitely, we saw the benefits of that for sure. But yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it from a Wales perspective. They are going to be better. They will have their first team out during the World Cup. They will play warm ball. It is effective. We even saw it yesterday, despite everything that happened in the game. They were quite good at that, at the up and unders. And they did, it is an effective game plan, and they're good at it. And one thing's for sure as well, with Gatland, he'll have that team highly motivated. So I think that they'll cause a few surprises at the World Cup. So let's not read too much into it.
Yeah.
From a Springboks perspective, yeah, just for me, it reinforced the strength and depth of the squad. Like, talk about the standouts like Marks, Keenan Moody. I loved his reads on defence as well. I think he really justified his decision to be included in that World Cup squad. Even if he did, I don't know, but for certain people, he probably needs to do that. But yeah, he was fantastic. Colby, I believe I read that he beat 9 defenders. Yeah, just reinforced his class. And great to see Khaleesi get, a solid 40 minutes under his belt, some really strong carries. We saw that beautiful offload. So yeah, great to see him back. Jesse Creel, again, what a performance. He really showed his pace. Manny, I think he had a mixed performance, but I think we all know he's better than that. He was probably poor off the tee, but I think we all know he can improve there. And it wasn't like a bad performance at all, but hopefully we'll see more from him. But yeah, I wouldn't read too much into this game, especially from a Welsh perspective.
No, 100%. Vuyo, now looking from a tactical or an analytic side of things. I mean, Hugh mentioned a number of mistakes or elements of mistakes from the Welsh side. Of course, the Springboks pounced and bounced on those opportunities. Welsh visited the Springbok 22-meter area, or even were close a couple of times towards the try line. I mean, they could have scored plenty of times, but they could not just get over the try line. Can we read too much from a Springboks perspective into this game and say the Boks are back?
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, definitely not. So, the first things first, I think, as Jade said, it was a captain's run. I think we can't say Peter Steve du Toit is back after a captain's run, so let's just slow down there. I think stick to New Zealand rugby, Jade. But anyway, in terms of that, in terms of what you're asking to me, Scoop, is for me the way that the Boks defended is something that they want to implement within the World Cup. So I tweeted yesterday about the decent performance. Decent performance meaning that 2 intercept tries. That was obviously what the Boks are going to do. That's what the Boks want to put you under pressure so that they can be able to stop you from attacking. And we saw 2 intercept tries from that. On the high ball, I wouldn't be happy how some of the retrieving of the high ball was done yesterday. I think it was quite bad. But at the end of the day, if the competition that you were watching or having against, it's not great, then you'll take the scraps. You'll take the scraps as coaches, and you'll move on. I think for me, the most impressive was obviously seeing Sia get a couple of knocks, get a couple of offloads. I mean, running into contact, double tackles, and him standing up, which is perfect for us. So, which means he is ready for the World Cup. I don't think we need to risk him anymore. The only thing we need to do is play him against the Springboks, against Scotland, and then after that we can
the All Blacks
rotate him. No, not against the All Blacks. No, why should he? There's no need.
Why not?
No, there's no need. He's had his test. He's had his captain's run. It's done. He saved the guy for the Springbok game, for the Scotland game. That's it. Starting the World Cup, starting with your captain, and that's it. So, anyway, I think decent performance in terms of, I think a lot of things worked out that they tried, as Jade said. I think for me it was nice to see a little bit playing with the ball, which is what I've always been saying. We're more dangerous when we play with the ball, when we play without the ball. I know our defense is good. Defense wins matches, but I think for me, it was great to see us playing with the ball and being able to handle it. So just a scoop. I think Catherine just needs to request, because she will have a little bit more info on Irish rugby and obviously rugby talk.
No, fair enough.
Be joined by her.
All right, fair enough. Dylan, you want to jump in here, but I'm still very curious at what Vuyo just said now about Sia Kolisi. 40 minutes after 4 or 5 months he's been out or whatever. I'm really curious at why would you only just give him 40 minutes now and not play him also in the upcoming test match against the All Blacks. You can jump in there, Dylan.
I just wanted to give my thoughts on yesterday's game. I do think a turning point. I mean, I predicted that the Springboks were going to dominate, especially scrum time, and that was happening. The Wales were under pressure from the first minute. The forwards getting over the gain line with the carries. It was like all box, but still the key turning point was Dyer's yellow card and penalty try. Up until then, the score was within 3 points.
Yeah.
And I think Wales just lost all the momentum from then onwards, because they knew. And with what you mentioned about Grady giving an assist try, I just had some time to think about it. At that point, the amount of pressure the Boks were putting them under scrum time, he knows if he pushes that down 10-1, the Springboks score from that 5-meter scrum anyway. So he was just trying to alleviate that sort of pressure. Unfortunately, he couldn't execute what he needed to do. So that was just. I just want to mention that, to all you guys' points, that was the turning point in the game. I still foresee the Boks would have won, but perhaps would have been a lot tighter if not for that turning point there.
Yeah. No, thanks, Dylan. Jade, 40 minutes. Sia Kolisi, are you happy, or would you also like to see him play against the All Blacks as well? I mean, just to get into that test match physicality. We know how long he's been out for, but I mean, to just only play 40 minutes, is it enough to keep him on the sideline and then wait for the Scottish game on the 10th of September? I think it's the 10th or 9th.
I got a feeling you want me to hit up my boy Fungani Pombo, the conditioner, and ask him how he feels about it. But I think from a conditioning perspective, I think he needs another hit. But then from a precaution perspective, we saw what happened to, Damak. We've seen a few big exits in this World Cup. There is that risk. However, let's take it into the context, guys. Friday's game won't be physical against New Zealand. It won't be as intense as the first game. I don't think so. I hope not. I think it will be a fair hit out between the two, it will be an open game. So I'll give Sia another run. Definitely give Sia another 40, just to get it under his belt. Just to get it maybe 40, 60 minutes maybe, so that he can take the full 80 against Scotland. However, the risk is there. So, well, that's up to Rassi. That's why he's got the big bucks, and that's why he's got the whole tapering and the periodization out there and the cycles out for his team. So it's up to him. But it'll go up to me, 40 minutes, 60 minutes max against the All Blacks.
Not fair. Hugh, I mean, overall, are you pleased with what you've seen the past 2 weeks from a Welsh perspective?
I think we have managed to come back. I think our fitness is very good. I think we've managed to get back into playing Warren ball, which has been successful and I still think can be successful, because the idea is you don't do a lot, but you also don't do a lot wrong. There are clearly players who have played who are not going to be part of the Welsh national side moving forwards. It's a shame that we had to learn that in such a brutal way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I can be positive about some of the guys who have come in, like Sam Costello, who I think has really put his hands up, providing his concussion isn't so bad, to start for Wales. So am I pleased? It's hard to be pleased after you've watched your team take 50, especially because it's starting to happen quite regularly now.
Yeah.
But I think I can be optimistic. It's a lot of it will be all right on the night. That's the only thing, is that we're all saying, oh, it'll be okay when we put the first team out against Fiji. I hope so. That's a bit of a leap of faith at the moment. But I've got to try and be positive. There's enough negativity in Welsh rugby, so I'll be positive and say, yes, we're going to win the World Cup.
Oh, well, that's a big call, mate. Very big call. Now moving on to the excessive celebrations. Ireland versus England. Welcome, Catherine, also all the way from Ireland. So Enda and Catherine will basically chime in on this one particularly, and then we will also just add our views and obviously opinions regarding the game from last night. Catherine, do you want to kick us off and share your views and opinions regarding the English and Irish game?
I'd love to. It's so nice to be here. I hope everyone's well. I'm laughing at the hashtag Rossi to Leinster. That's a new one on me, lads, by the way. I haven't heard that one. Who was excessively celebrating?
Maro Itoje, Ben Earls.
Oh, yeah. Well, they've nothing else to be celebrating. God love them, so we'll give them their moment in the sun. I did actually see that has become a SARS thing. They're trying to essentially hype the players in moments where the game is pivoted, and it's actually more of an internal focus type thing for the players, and Saracens is teaching it, so you only really see it from the Saracens players, which is quite frankly hilarious, but we'll let them have their moment. I mean, if I may, right, I think we fired on 3/4 of one cylinder yesterday. I think really somebody here and this fine group of us earlier has referred to it as the captain's run. These games are glorified captain's runs with TV cameras and people paying €110 a pop for a ticket, right? I mean, they're running lines. Fellas are out there trying to grab at the opportunity, or guys trying to cement their places. So I would take all of these summer series games as a lovely bit of an interlude in August and not really read too much into what happened. That said, it was really fascinating for me to watch our back row. And I don't know how you feel about this, but our back row and our second row in particular, just at the breakdown, are so streets ahead of any other side. And respectfully, South Africa, this is going to annoy you, but I think we're ahead there too. And what do you think?
Yeah, I think that the back row did do really well, and it was hilarious seeing how well they did, and then seeing Caelan Doris come on of all players, what an impact there. But yeah, especially counter up time as well, like Josh Van der Player really put in a strong performance there. But yeah, overall in terms of the game, I think it was important for you to have that perspective. Like, it is a pre-World Cup game, so that's all it is. It's a warm-up game. But it did remind me of the Six Nations game against Ireland when Ireland played England, and England did apply a lot of pressure. They're very good, and I think at slowing the ball down. Not a very good side, but very good at slowing the ball down. A good correction there for me to make. But yeah, I thought England, this is a better performance from them. There were less errors. I think last week I mentioned they made something like 16 handling errors, and it was something similar the previous week. So they were a little bit better to give them something. And I do have a question at the end of this for the panel, because I know there are coaches listening, so I do want to get their perspective on those excessive celebrations. But yeah, just from an Irish perspective, there were some obviously standouts. Matt Hansen, he is the freedom to play across the park. I thought he was deservedly man of the match, and you could tell from that crossfield kick that he was a former out half. So he's a brilliant player. Hugo Keenan, absolutely rock solid on their high ball. And it's great watching him play, I think, as well, because he doesn't just, his first instinct instinct is when he catches the ball, not to kick it back. His first instinct is to run back. So it's great to see him put in a good performance. James Lowe, Ross Byrne, I think overall he had a good game. And I think it's good for competition because a lot of people have been calling for Crowley to be the number one back up to Sexton. But I thought Ross Byrne kind of reminded us of his strengths. Now, I know his kicking was a little bit off, but we know he's a better kicker than that. Bundy Aki, I think his try kind of typifies Ireland's attack, which is very nuanced, which involves a lot of passes. It involves a lot of options. So you don't when the pot of three takes on. When the middle player takes on the ball, he has a couple of options on who to pass to. So that was a lovely try. And a special mention, obviously, for Keith Earls making his 100 cap. I think he said in his interview after the game, what a way to celebrate by scoring against Ireland. And what a pass from Aki. There are still some pundits within Ireland who think that Bundy Aki can't pass. There was even a pundit after the game who said it was actually a poor pass because he threw it high. I think we all know why he threw it high.
Yeah.
I think, just wanted to... But then just from a question for the panel, especially to the coaches, so for Jade and Vickers, like, what is your take on these excessive celebrations? There have been a good few people online saying, well, it's good for morale, it's a good psychological boost. But for me, what I like to see is a team defending on their 5-meter line, and then the player wins a turnover. I don't want to see that player celebrate. I want to see the whole team run in and tap them on the back. Same with a scrum penalty, especially close to your own line. When the forwards win a scrum penalty, I want to see the whole team like that. That for me indicates it's a really good team environment there. I don't like individuals celebrating like that and screaming at the top of their lungs. I want to see the team come in and celebrate. But I'd love to get your opinions. And that's it for me. Just over to you, Captain, and to the coaches.
Coaches, go push.
You guys are leaving that for you because you had a nice interaction with Tommy last night. So I'm leaving that for you. Okay. All right. So then, look, when you celebrate, it always has to be at the right moment with the right context. So celebrating after winning against Wales, where you've taken a pounding the previous week, then you win, and then you go and celebrate the following week where you're losing the game, it doesn't make sense. So there's always has to be context in that. Yes, we encourage players to celebrate because it brings you a good feel, if I can say. Remember, as I mentioned about 4 weeks ago, I said when you have a good feel, when you're happy in as a sportsman, you are bound to be performing better. So for me, I don't really get why they did celebrate, but that maybe they didn't understand what they were encouraged to do. That's probably one of it. But for me, I wouldn't allow my players to celebrate in this kind of state in English rugby. I wouldn't allow that. I wouldn't allow us to bring that kind of media towards us because it's a positive thing could turn into a negative thing, So I would think that, for me, I would think that they literally score tries, run back to the halfway line, and restart the game because that's what they want. Because that's what they want to do. They want to play rugby, not to be dancing, celebrating, doing showboats like the Barbarians. The Barbarians is rugby. That's Barbarians rugby, but it can't be international rugby, and that's why the Barbarians do what they do.
Jade, don't be shy.
Yeah, for me, there's two sides to this, okay? For England, I don't know, this is a tactic, like Catherine said, it's a Saracens tactic. Now, there's a lot of guys that celebrate and that's very vocal on the field. I'll just go back and keep it in context with Enda and Catherine last year on the OTB podcast when Ireland toured New Zealand. It was mentioned there that you'd see a guy like Aaron Smith on the field. And as soon as he's vocal on the field, celebrating and shouting around, you know that New Zealand has the upper hand or the end of the game. But when he's quiet, that's when you know you're on top of him. And that's what Ireland did to New Zealand last year. So you get certain players like Aaron Smith, like George Gregan was in his day, that's very arrogant and, they do celebrate as vocal. But for a team to celebrate and to go on like that, and considering the background where they currently are, guys are making a mockery about it. It's really. I think they should keep quiet, focus on the discipline. There's so much bad vibes, bad news regarding this English team at the moment. Maybe they should just keep quiet about it and just keep quiet on the field and just do their work. Start to tackle for once.
They were celebrating a skew throw at one point as well.
Yeah, was celebrating a skew throw. A skew throw. Can you believe it, guys? I mean, I don't know, but it's typical Pommies. Sorry to say that, but it's typical.
That to me would indicate a significant absence of leadership throughout the squad, and that's one thing that Ireland is very hot on. There's a very strong sense of unity and leadership, and we are blessed with having the better of the two Farrells involved with our camp. I'm pretty happy with our choice of Farrell. But I observed that, and this is where my interest kind of goes a bit academic, because I'm interested in the psychology of organisations and particularly of teams. I just don't see any leadership in England, and I think that's what's happening. Fellas are fraying at the edges. I mean, would any of you want to be in that camp at the moment?
Very good question. I mean, leadership is a pivotal or an absence within this current English side as well. I think that's a very good point that you raised there, Catherine. Hugh, you also want to jump in here. I know you love the English rugby team. You love Borthwick's team as well. You want to jump in here as a Welshman spending your time in England?
Yeah, you'll always get a fair and balanced view on England from me, Scoop. So to answer Catherine's question and take the celebration thing. So one of the defences that are made is people are like, I don't have a celebration. I don't have a problem with people celebrating the small moments. Well, okay, so if it's a small moment, have a small celebration, a high five, a pat on the back, like Enda said. Ben Earl dropped to his knees and screamed so much that the veins were popping in his neck. Like, that's not a small celebration. To me, it's about standards. It's about, to flip it on its head, who would you rather play against? Would you rather play against a team who scores a try, they don't even smile, and they just walk back to halfway and take it again, because, we score tries, that's what we do? Or would you play against a team who, like you said, the skew throw, which they've done nothing to create, and then they literally drop to their knees and they're screaming and there's tears running down their faces? It's who in that squad is going, no, this isn't us, we're taking record defeat after record defeat here, we're England, we're above this, we're higher than this.
Yeah.
And to answer Catherine's point about who would want to be in the camp, I think the way, partly it's not his fault, but I think the Borthwick way of managing this squad and this camp has been really poor. Because of the 5-week stand-down period that the Sale and the Saracens guys have had, and they came into the camp late, Borthwick filled his squad with players who were never going to get taken. So that squad would have been a miserable place, because all those players would have been looking at each other going, we're not going. As soon as the Sarries boys come in, they're getting picked. And lo and behold, every single Sarries player who Borthwick has picked this summer is still in the squad. He hasn't dropped a single one. So the players all know in the group who the first choice person is. I mean, look at Theo Dan. Theo Dan's got, half an hour of test match rugby? Jamie George played the full 80 last week. So what's the message does that send to the other two hookers in the squad? You're only here to make up the numbers because I have to have more than one hooker, but I'm going to be playing Jamie George for the full 80 if I can get away with it. So that's the kind of situation that they're in. And now the camp, Borthwick's named his team so early, and now he's got nowhere to go. He can't change the squad. He can't change the starting lineup, really. I mean, he can change a lock maybe here and there. He can change which props, but the only change he can make to the props is the guys who are on the bench start and the guys who start are on the bench. That's not really a big change. And then just a broader picture about England's higher management or anything, if this goes really badly at the World Cup and they go out of the group stage, they can't do anything either, because they spent millions paying off coaches and getting this coaching team out of Leicester into the England team. They cannot be seen to sack these guys because they can't argue that they've given them a fair chance. So England are really in a hole here. It's a stale squad. It's a coaching group that is learning on the job. and it's a higher management who have not given their union the best chance to succeed. It's a really bad situation that they're in.
So the problem is administration, not the problem starts with administrators within the rugby union, not about the coaching and everything. Because the people that appoint these people, when are they getting reviewed? When are they getting the hash, if I can say? Everyone looks at the final product, but who appointed this person? So why did you appoint them, and what made you appoint them? That is the question that we should be asking.
But at the same breath, we can still ask regarding what Hugh is saying right now. I mean, Bothwick has been put in charge, right? He's a head coach. He's won the Gallagher Premiership with Leicester, and now he is meant to be looking after this group. Hugh talks about the staleness within this group itself. Catherine mentions leadership as one of the key aspects that's lacking within this team. Where is the coach in this whole chaos that's currently happening within the English rugby team? Their game plan is stale. Their form of attack is non-existent. I mean, there's no process that you can say when you watch England, wow, this is a great team with good structures, good fundamentals, good philosophy. We all understand. I mean, Vickers, you're a coach yourself. You have to implement a philosophy coming into a team environment. You have to implement some form of platform. You have to implement some form of structure, some form of behavioral traits or behavioral things that you want to see, right? Being showcased on the field, off the field as well. I mean, where does Bothwick now take responsibility within this group? Jade, and then Catherine, you can jump after Jade.
Yeah, Scoop, just as you said there, and that's the exact opposite as to what Ireland are doing now. I mean, everything all the questions you asked there, where's the philosophy, where's the structure, where's everything, you can see in the Ireland group that it's there. Actually, I think this Ireland team gives me ACT Brumbies early 2000 vibes. They give that vibe off to me. But the thing I want to mention of England, and this is what is possible from this World Cup. They creep up to the semi-finals, and then they see this as a success. They forget all about the problems you mentioned here, the philosophy, the playing style. Everything is forgotten. They made the semi-finals, and they see it as a success. And for English rugby, the best thing that could happen to them, if they get knocked out of the group stages, then they could do a deep dive and restructure everything. That's a big problem you have when you put administrators here or people in an administrator role that never played the game or doesn't have a background in the game. That's the big problem.
Yes, Catherine.
Jade, if I may, Ireland will definitely see reaching a semi-final as a success. Right, that's my first point. So I get that in first, get your retaliation in first, as they say. I don't think that Borthwick has much to work from, and I will respectfully point out to anyone English who might listen to this, and I'm not sure there's many English listening to this, to be fair. I don't think the Premiership is fit for purpose. You know, we can speak from a position of some snugness that the Irish and South Africans are taking part in the URC and the Welsh, of course, as well. I think our competition is better, and that's where it needs to come from. You don't automatically take a series of players that are playing in a mediocre setup and suddenly transplant them into England camp and expect significant results. And Borthwick's parachuted into a job. I would respectfully suggest the job is beyond him. I think he's badly advised. I think his backroom team includes Kevin Sinfield, who has come out very strongly in defence of the upright tackle. Interesting enough, we've also seen Sean Edwards in France commend Farrell's tackling technique as well. I think it's perhaps less of a personal thing, and it's much more of a rugby construct. They have gone down the wrong road. If they go out in the group stages, perhaps a country like Ireland or indeed South Africa would take that opportunity to root and branch reform, sit down, analyse everything. England tends not to do that, and I'd be interested to get your thoughts as well, Hugh, and what you think of that.
Yeah, well, first thing I'd say is if you're going to bash the English Premiership, you're going to make a lot of friends on this space. It is a farmers' league. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, I think the problem that England have got is, even in Wales, that Wales are a model of how not to do things. But our union still has a say over how the elite clubs are run. England have got a model more like France, although France have got more central governance than people think.
Yeah.
So there's an adversarial relationship between the union and the clubs. And, our friend Clive Woodward wrote a piece, I think it was week just gone or the week before, saying that one of the reasons he left the England job was because he just couldn't get the clubs to put in a proper elite structure in the game in England. And you're right, it is absolutely killing it. And what will happen is, if they want to do a root and branch review in England, the clubs will either stonewall and not take part in it, or just blame someone else and go, it's not our fault. We've seen people like Rob Baxter at Exeter be very selfish when it comes to players and structures and things. They're out for number one. They're not even going to, for the English national team, do something for the greater good. They're going to be extremely selfish. I think, unfortunately, the sort of privatised and the hands-off, very conservative style form of government that they've got in the RFU doesn't allow them to do any kind of root and branch changes, because they just don't have the power.
They just don't have the power. Enda, I see your hand is up, mate. You can go for it.
Yeah, just touching on that as well, and I think this is again where we reinforce the success of the Irish structure. Like everything, like every appointment is run through the union, and they always have the Irish team at the heart of every decision they make. So if the RFU will sign off an Ulster signing a foreign-based player or a foreign player who comes in, like they will give that the yes or the no, and what they will consider during that is whether or not that player will contribute to the province and will impede on a young player coming up through the ranks, or So I think that to me is another reason why I don't think English rugby potentially, like not in the near future anyway, will ever get anywhere close to Ireland, because they've got private clubs, they've got private ownership. The players, look at the rest that the Irish players get. Like last weekend, they were in Portugal. Do you know what I mean? As a national side preparing for the World Cup, and I just think because of the English approach that they've taken, and now we've actually heard some murmurings of central contracts coming into English rugby. And I think that's the only thing, potentially long term that will lead to success for the English, is if they start putting the national team first, instead of the clubs, and that's what we do from an Irish perspective.
Fair enough. Without moving away from you, Enda, how confident are you currently with this Irish side? Are there any negatives or niggles that you see within the structure of Ireland? Do you still see Ireland going past the quarterfinals, making it into the semi-finals for the first time in a very, very long time? How confident are you with this current Irish setup?
Relatively confident, I think. The Springboks, they always scare me from time to time. But again, when you put that performance test into perspective against not a Welsh first team, I am still confident. In terms of, I think frailties or anything like that, I don't think so. I think although the obvious one is Sexton. If Sexton gets hurt, I think we're at risk. Not that we don't have good players behind them, but he is, a former World Player of the Year. He is our most important player. So if he does go down during the group stages, I think we are at risk. But in terms of style of play, I think we're leading the pack there along with New Zealand. I think we're well capable of playing the variety with ball in hand. We've a really strong kicking game, really strong defensive game. I think we tick a lot of boxes. The only issue then, of course, is that in the quarterfinal we're either going to play, France or New Zealand.
Yeah.
But I think, the one for me is Sexton has to stay fit. If he doesn't, we're at risk of not getting to that illustrious semi-final.
Catherine?
I think Ireland will do exactly what everyone expects them to do.
Win the World Cup.
Well, what? It entirely depends on your expectation. I think, well, we have the current World Player of the Year playing, don't forget, and in Josh. And I think there have been enough leaders, like Sexton limping off the field in March against England in Lansdowne Road was quite possibly the optimal thing from a team perspective, clearly not from the player's perspective, but probably has forced a level of growth and maturity, particularly at 10, that we would perhaps not have had. That's not to say I advocate injuring your key players. Clearly I don't. But I would look at perhaps Ross yesterday and think, Jesus, you have to nail your kicks, and then look at Crowley snapping on his heels and think that's a fine replacement. I would suspect key issues or key injuries to second row, back row would do for us more than an injury at 10. But to answer your question, lads, I have 4 sets of tickets and they all stop dead at the quarterfinals. So that's what my expectation is.
Fair enough. Hugh, closing out this Irish versus England, how do you see this England team performing in the World Cup?
Based on what we've seen so far, I can't see them beating Argentina. They're averaging, 1 try a game, less than 1 try a game at the moment, and most of those tries are coming from driving mauls, and they're all coming in the second half when the game's already lost. So I think Argentina are favourites and they've got them first up, and then it's all going to be on the final game against Samoa.
Yeah.
And they should be too good for Samoa. They're for all the positivity that even I myself want to have about the Pacific Island nations, and I do think Samoa are going in the right direction. Sapawanga made his debut for them against the Barbarians on Friday. England should have just too much for Samoa, but I tell you one thing: I wouldn't bet on England's bottle to hold in a tight game. If they're going into that game needing a result, needing a decent points difference, England will choke. That is what they do. It could be unpleasant.
Okay, fair enough. We've rounded that off, but staying with the Northern Hemisphere versus the Southern Hemisphere, we're going into a Rugby World Cup currently. And what I've noticed also, I'd seen that Ben Smith had also written an article as well, but it was something I've been thinking about this past week in terms of the amount of rugby that is played in the Northern Hemisphere going into the World Cup itself. Looking at Rugby Championship, the guys have had, minimum of 3 games, and they'll probably play another 2 warm-up games now in August, coming up to a total of 5 rugby international games that the Southern Hemisphere has played. Looking at the Northern Hemisphere, after 6 nations and now playing almost every week in August, we're looking at roughly 9 internationals. Do you guys think, I'll start off with you, Jade, do you guys think that the Southern Hemisphere would come into this into this World Cup as a more fresh sides, or would they come in as tough? Because we've seen how France has performed as well. I mean, they're not at their peak. Ireland yesterday, yes, they won, but maybe not as sharp as they were during the 6 Nations. I understand this was a holiday period, June, July in Europe currently, and a lot of guys are coming in from holiday. But, I mean, do you guys think coming into this World Cup, the Northern Hemisphere would have played way too many games? Or is it irrelevant or how many games they've played coming into this World Cup? Jade, I'll start off with you.
For the number 1 team in the world, Ireland, I don't have that concern because I think their player management structures over the past year has been absolutely spot on. I mean, we've barely seen a lot of Leinster players playing UFC. I don't think for them it's a big concern. For the guys playing the top 14, and this affects a lot of nations, so the Pacific Islanders as well. Yes, I think they have played a lot of games. Now, the interesting thing is, where do you want your players to peak, Scoop? Do you want your players to peak in the group stages, if you're France and New Zealand, South Africa, for example? Or are you looking at the quarterfinal stage where you want them to peak? We've seen previous World Cups, 2015, with the All Blacks and the last World Cup as well, the Boks, they basically peaked from the quarterfinals and they played the best rugby from the quarterfinals through.
Yeah.
So that's another thing where you do have a few hits in the rugby, in the group stages where you do expect to beat Scotland from South Africa's perspective. They beat Scotland, they through to the next round. They can lose against Ireland, but doesn't matter who they play. The quarterfinal is going to be tough. New Zealand or France is going to be a tough game. So you're looking at your quarterfinal, ideally to peak. And that is when you want your best players in the world, your best players to be on form. So that's where it does come in. It's tricky for the North because they also had to incorporate a off-season and give it a little bit of rest. Whereas the South, they prepped right through. I mean, the Boks has been in camp since March together, doing things together where Ireland and England has came a little bit later in. So it's difficult to say, yes or no. It all comes down to your player management per country and how they've seen it over the 12-month cycle.
Yeah.
Instead of just looking at 3 or 4 months before the season started or before the World Cup started and saying, we're going to go into the World Cup now, we need to get these guys fresh. This comes over a 12-month cycle, how many rugby they've played.
Yeah, fair enough. Enda? Enda's gone.
Still there, Scoop?
Oh, Enda, sorry. My mic was off.
Yeah, look, I think we'd all probably be in agreement that rugby players are playing too many games. I don't think that's too far-fetched. Like, they need to play less games, especially on the back of all the horrific stories we've been hearing about former players suffering from health issues with their brains. So we need to cut down on the number of games that players are playing. But how do you do this when they're playing for their clubs? Like the top 4 teams started on Friday, which just seems a bit crazy to me, the Pro D2. And the second tier of the French competition started on Thursday. So for me, I don't know where we go from here in terms of, like, we do. First of all, we do play too many games in the Northern Hemisphere. That's a fact. But how do you draw the line? Because the players have to play a certain amount of games for their clubs. Because if they pay for their clubs, then their clubs win more games and they get more people coming to their games, et cetera, et cetera. So the clubs need those players, but also the national teams need those players. So for me, I think, and again, I am biased, but I think Ireland's leading the way, and I think Jay touched on this. You need to put the national team first, and you need to rest your top players in the URC, have them playing in Heineken Cup games, have them playing a handful of URC games. But if they're the number one starting, say, out half for Ireland, they need to rest, and there needs to be a limit on how many games they play. But it's just so hard to balance all this, because if you look at the IRFU, for example, they make 86% of their revenue from the international game. So it's how they fund Connacht, Leinster, Ulster, Munster, and Leinster. They need this money, so they have to play the significant amount of international games to fund the sport, from an Irish perspective anyway. So to me, it comes down to the club game. And look at the Premiership. We've had 3 clubs go under. So obviously the model is not working, especially from an English perspective. So I think we need to look at the major leagues in the Northern Hemisphere and somehow cut the amount of games that players are playing, or have bigger squads. I don't know, but we are playing too many games. We need to play less games, especially from a player welfare perspective. But how do we balance that with with competitive leagues and wanting to get more people watching rugby?
Yeah. Vuyo?
I think the difficulty comes within the understanding of what the competitions want from the clubs. For example, you can register 45 players, and in that 45 players, you can, if someone gets injured for longer than, say injured longer 3 months, and then you can change, put someone else. So it is a little bit more not understandable in that sense, because you could sign, when we've just seen the Bulls sign 53 top players, and the Bulls are they will have to register 45 of those players, and then there'll be the other guys who we call the 8 guys lingering, waiting for an injury. So it's a matter of what has been tried within the setups. For me, I think, for example, if you are playing URC, you're playing Championship Cup, you're playing Currie Cup, you should be able to register 60 players with ease. If you can afford to play 60 players, good salary, good living, you should be able to register 60, and in those 60, you can maneuver them wherever you want them to be. I think that's for me, that's what important. Then touching on what Jade said, I think picking at a quarterfinal would be risky. I would never want to pick at a quarterfinal as a coach. I would want to pick from game one. Reason being, because once you know your squad from game one, once your players click from game one, game two, you are afforded the chance of resting a couple of players going to game three or game four, and then after that, obviously finishing off to prepare for the quarterfinal. So if I was a coach in going to the World Cup, I would be looking at picking at quarterfinal. I would be looking at peaking from game one, which is your Scotland game for South Africa, which is put your best out team against Scotland, let them bash it out. If you're happy with a couple of players, minutes, in terms of how they're going, the next two games, you don't play them or they come off the bench, but you do something. For example, I would say, if you look at our hooker position, you start your best hooker, you put in the reserve on the bench, and they work themselves out of they work themselves out of, and then after that, going to game two and game three, maybe you can afford to rest one of the hookers, which is your main hooker. But for me, I would never look at peaking at quarterfinals, because that's dangerous. Because how do you pick at quarterfinals? How do you prep for it? As a coach, I know you can never say, I'll have my best team in the quarterfinals. It's impossible. So you have to give guys time. You have to give combinations. The front row has to be together. The locks have to be worked together. The loose three have to work together. The 9 and 10 have to work together. The centers have to understand each other, and the back three have to understand each other. So it's a lot more deeper in conversation in terms of how you're going to think of it. And I would rather have it from game one instead of trying out it in the quarterfinal.
Fair enough. Jade, I will let you answer just now, but I have Hugh and then Catherine, and then Jade, you can chime in after Catherine. I have a feeling you want to attack Vuyo on this one. Yes, you can go ahead, Hugh.
Yeah, so I think that just talking about the article that you referenced by Ren Smith first, so there was a couple of things in that I didn't agree with. One of the things was he used Saliku Faletau in 2019 as an example of too many games, and that playing through the warm-up games meant that he was unfit for the World Cup. That isn't true. He got injured in training before he played a single game, so that point doesn't really stand. I'd also point out that in a World Cup year, I mean, if we're talking about total number of games, I mean, if you're counting the Six Nations as stack-up of games as well as the August tests, so that's kind of a bit of a reach for me. You know, the Southern Hemisphere teams, like let's take South Africa for example. The 3 Rugby Championship games, that extra game that is everybody's favourite game against Argentina, then a game against Wales, and then you're playing New Zealand on Friday. That's more games in the quote-unquote summer than any of the Northern Hemisphere teams will be playing. No one in the Northern Hemisphere is playing more than 4. You guys are playing 6. Okay, you've got a couple of breaks in there, but you're playing more games. I would also point out that over the course of a World Cup cycle, Southern Hemisphere teams play something like 20% more test matches than Northern Hemisphere teams. So Northern Hemisphere teams, if you take someone like Ireland, play 11, 12 test matches a year most. Australia played 15 test matches last year in 2022. 15 test matches. Because the advantage that the Southern Hemisphere teams, particularly Australia and New Zealand, mostly New Zealand, have in the rugby calendar, for me, isn't something that gets spoken about enough.
Yeah.
You know, the Northern Hemisphere calendar is a mess. You know, if you take Wales or Ireland, they got URC, then into European Rugby, which is the Champions or Challenge Cup, into the autumn tests, then back to European Rugby, then back to URC, then European, then Six Nations, then European, then URC, and then you've got the knockout rounds of Europe and the knockout rounds of the URC all overlapping and being in between each other. New Zealand, this year, have played all of Super Rugby and then their tests. And And then the players who didn't get selected for the test match team have gone to NPC. So they're still getting rugby, they're still getting development there. That is a huge, huge advantage. That is something that the Northern Hemisphere nations would kill to have. If New Zealand started with a blank sheet of paper, they couldn't have written a better rugby calendar for themselves. And that's why they're so settled. That's why they're able to just drop players in and out, because they're playing 20% more games per World Cup cycle than the Northern Hemisphere sides, and they're playing them all back to back. Okay, they have some week breaks in there, but an All Black player is in from, let's call it the start of July, and plays all of those 14, 15 tests up until the last week of November. And they don't play any rugby other than for the All Blacks, whereas an Irish player has his first test match in the first weekend of November and his last test match in possibly the first weekend of July. That's like a 40-week long season with fewer tests sprinkled in between it. So, respectfully, I don't really go with this argument that the Northern Hemisphere players play too much rugby. I think the real advantage in World Rugby is held by the likes of New Zealand and Australia with how the calendar is.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Hugh. Catherine?
Hello. I'm afraid my reception's going to cut out because I'm on a train, as you can probably hear. This is my favourite subject, and Hugh has nailed it for me. Let's go for next time. Let me lie back.
All right, fair enough. Jade, you wanted to jump in on Vuyo with the boxing gloves.
I'm not going to jump in on Vuyo. No ways I'm not going to jump in on Vuyo. What I wanted to say, Vuyo is right. I just maybe misinterpret what I was saying. However, if you do look at it, you want to be at your best in the quarterfinals. You want your team, everybody to peak at your quarterfinals. I don't start saying play your second or third team against Scotland. Choose your strongest team, but you want your motor to be fully running, fully functional at the quarterfinals. That's when you want everything must hit straps in, and I think a lot of conditioners focus towards that. As part of what you said for the calendar, you summed it up perfectly there. But from a Southern Hemisphere perspective, if you're looking at the other teams, South Africa and Australia, for example, they're in trouble. South Africa gets an injury crisis at 10 with the lack of rugby that happened now in the past few months. Who do they call up? So that's a problem now. You're looking at the calendar. So that could be a problem. Whereas New Zealand, they're unlucky. They're the NPC now this time. That's how I would have loved the Currie Cup to happen at this time of the year now. It would have been awesome. But unfortunately, it can't because of the UFC and the Heineken Cup calendar.
Fair enough. Well said there, Jade. Guys, unfortunately, obviously, we had a few more chats and debates to jump on into, but I have to jump to the group stage, Group C. 2 weeks ago, we looked at Group A. Last week, we looked at Group B. This week, we are looking at Group C. So who is in Group C? We've got Wales, Australia, Argentina, Georgia, and Portugal. Hugh, I want to start off with you because you're a Welshman living in England. What are your thoughts within this group? How do you see Wales performing? And also, who's your team to finish number one in this group? And who is your wooden spoon?
I think Portugal will finish bottom, sadly. That'll get that easy one out of the way. I think the other four teams in the group is completely open. I think they can all beat each other. Well, they have all beaten each other. I think it's almost impossible to tell. I think we'll have to wait until the first weekend because we still don't really know what to expect from Australia if it's based on their summer. I mean, let's judge them after they play France, I think, next week. But yeah, it's still they're a bit of an unknown. Are they maybe been done a disservice by the fact they were playing New Zealand in the box? Makes them look worse than they are. Wales, I've covered Wales kind of previously, so I won't talk about them anymore, thank you. Fiji, I'm a huge Fiji fan. It's a shame they're in the same pool as Wales because otherwise I'd be cheering them on every game they played. I think they're really building something. I think they're really exciting. They gave France a hell of a game last night. The scoreline maybe didn't say it, but that was a very good matchup in contest between those two teams. And then Georgia are going to be going into the World Cup full of confidence because they thumped Portugal. No, they thumped Romania, week before last, and they beat USA yesterday as well. And USA had been going well this summer. So I think all of those teams will be going into that thinking they can top the group. and it will be thrilling to see. I think someone else said on another podcast, I don't see a team winning every single game. I think there's going to be 4 wins and 3 wins going around between all 4 of those teams. So it's honestly too tough to predict.
Very, very, very tough group. Also, I mean, we all looked at South Africa in Group B and how tight that is between Ireland and Scotland. But I think Group C is just as tough for those teams that are participating within that group itself. Enda, your views on Group C?
It's a very tricky one. It's really hard to predict how Australia are going to perform in this group. I mean, if Eddie Jones' interview is anything to go by, I think they're going to be highly, highly motivated because the entire world's out to get them by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
So he might have a very, very highly motivated squad ready. I think, controversially, I think Wales will come out on top. I think Australia would just pip Fiji. I think Fiji be third, then Georgia, then Portugal, unfortunately, has the wooden spoon. But Fiji did feel me confidence yesterday with their performance against France. So they, you could see them causing an upset and maybe replacing Australia's second seed. But I think Wales are gonna win this group. Probably be completely wrong, but that's the way I look at it now. But again, based on Fiji's performance yesterday, they could do a job in Australia. I just can't see Australia not making it through to the knockout rounds. That seems crazy to me. But we've seen, how poor they've been in the lead up, and they're probably going to go in with 5 losses from 5 games. But again, if Eddie Jones' interviews that to go by, they're going to be motivated.
Fair enough. Jade?
For me, guys, I've said it, and my dog also at this World Cup is Fiji. I'm predicting Fiji makes a semi-final in this World Cup.
Why?
I just got this feeling. I'm backing what I said. I think last night we've seen against France that they can hold it all. There's a few decision-making that at line-out time, a few timing issues they can sort out, but they held their own against the scrum against a very good French scrum. They held their own. On defense, they were solid. Attack, they didn't show much. Rio played against these Fijians a lot of times on the circuit. You could see that it was very, structured. One of first phase, one of running yesterday from Fijians. We never really saw Radrada and those guys running angles and everything. So I think Fiji for me. And also remember they got a few big hitters to come into that team. I mean, Naisalewa didn't play, Toisawa didn't play yesterday. A few other guys didn't play. Yeah. So Fiji won. Australia and Wales, coin toss. I'm gonna go Wales because I don't like this whole clown comedy show that's happening with Australia at the moment. I mean, Jason Riles, assistant coach now. Come on, guys. Then Australia third, Georgia fourth, Portugal.
All right. Vuyo.
Mate, I'm laughing because I'm trying to think. If Jade is saying that Fiji's going to make the semi-final, then...
No, he didn't say semi-final.
No, he said semi-final. I heard him say semi-final.
He said semi-final.
Semi-final. Wait, what?
So semi-final. Who are the 3 teams that are with Fiji in the semi-final? I'm just laughing. But anyway, no worries, guys. When I look at it's pretty easy. For me, it's pretty easy. Australia, Wales. That's going to be the top 2 teams that go through. But I think this is now looking at the pool and thinking, okay, I honestly think for the second and Wales will finish first. I'm just not happy with where Australia's been at the moment, and I don't think. I actually think Wales are in a better position than Australia. As much as Wales got a 50 last night, but I think they're in a better position than Australia. And Australia will come out, yes, guns blazing. They will shoot, yes. But I think Wales will finish first and Australia will finish second. And that's it.
You're trying to suck up to Hugh there, Vuyo. I understand. Catherine, you can jump in.
Yes, if you can hear me okay, I will.
Yeah.
I don't think Australia will finish first. I think Fiji will finish first, and I think Australia will be second, and I think Wales will be third.
Jeez, okay.
Amen. I don't sound ridiculous. I don't sound bad.
Very well said, guys. Thank you very much, guys, for joining in. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Enda. Thank you, Hugh, Vuyo, and Jade. Kofi, I see you listening in, and hopefully you can jump in next week. But thank you to the listeners as well, guys. Thank you for joining us. This was another installment of the Rugby Scoop. We're going to finish off by playing you a soundbite from the one and only Indiana Jones.
Complain about players that don't get selected. Keep doing about that because it's fantastic, because we love it.
I don't think it's a reflection of just the media. I think if you go into a World Cup campaign with a full straight game,
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. We haven't been good enough. No, let them keep going, mate. I love this. I love this negativity. It's fantastic. I love it. Keep going. Keep going.
All right, everyone, keep going. Have a lovely Sunday. Enjoy your day. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Cheers.
Joe.